everyone, and welcome to Talking Out a Line, a show, as you know, about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, where we'll be exploring these topics in different industries across the United States. In today's episode, we'll be exploring gamification and DEIB. Our special guest is Perry Clements, who's an educator and creator of Inequalityopoly, which is an adaptation of Monopoly, where you get to experience what it is to gain wealth in America based on different identity groups.
Clemens is an educator who hopes to educate students, families, workplaces, and everyone in between on the problems that come with having different cultural backgrounds and the gender discrimination individuals face in the United States. In this game, each player is assigned one of 8 different characters at random. You have the chance to play as either an Asian, Black, Hispanic, white male, or female.
The idea for this game came from sitting through many diversity and inclusion training sessions where he realized that the people teaching them had a really hard time transferring those statistics into something people could relate to and understand. With these trainings being important for companies to build inclusive workplaces, Clements decided to take the initiative and create a product that could be used to involve not only the corporations, but the people in them, and make it interactive and fun and something that people could really understand by letting them be in the shoe of their coworkers and members of their community.
So the teacher that Clemens is, he understands that the easiest way to teach something is through games and making those statistics come to life instead of keeping them numbers on a page. Similar to what education shows for kids like Sesame Street do, he's found ways to make learning engaging and entertaining to everyone without making it feel like a task. Inequalityopoly has 3 years of research behind it, making all the statistics, facts, and playability as genuine and thorough as possible.
Yeah, and we both have played the game, and we know exactly that the way in which, at least it was for me, it was fun, and I learned the process and learned so much data of what it is like to be different identities in the United States and how that impacts our wealth building in such a fun and interactive way, rather than just sitting down and reading a dry article about it. So gamification has become an important tool that companies utilize in today's society to teach and train their workers in everything from diversity to productivity to employee engagement. As always, before jumping into the interview between me and Perry, let's look at the statistics about how gamification and DEIB have impacted corporations in America. Gamification has started to grow more and more throughout the years. Since 2016, the gamification value has grown from, hear me out, $4.6 billion worldwide to $11.9 billion in 2019. That's more than double. Now, 70% of Global 2000 companies use gamification in some way to train their employees. In schools, over 60% of students agree in how gamification has helped them be more engaged and motivated in classrooms, which many times translates into them being more engaged and successful.
The idea of having games and interactive activities helps employees and students alike retain information through having to use it firsthand. In one case, an elementary school math teacher saw test improvements of 34% after only 4 months of implementing games into her teaching. 80% of US workers believe that game-based learning is more engaging and effective too.
The results are not left out, and the impacts are not left out on the adults of the US as well. For adults, the most effective strategies in gamification seem to be level progressing games, points and scores, competition, and real-time feedback. The countries that have been utilizing games to teach employees the most are Western European countries, Eastern European countries, African countries, the countries in the Central Asian bloc, and North America.
And if all these statistics aren't enough to convince you that gamification is truly a great tool that has shaped many companies and pushed many employees to be more efficient, it's proven that 83% of employees who undergo gamified training are more eager and motivated to work. You know, everyone can think back to the days back in school when the teacher planned out an activity. The competitiveness, quick decision-making, and memorable moments always helped you retain that information a lot better than just taking a few notes and dozing off during lectures. You know, no matter if it's a corporate setting or an academic environment, everyone loves games. Enjoying your time and learning at the same time it definitely seems like a win-win.
So thank you so much, Aiden, for providing a nice introduction for Perry Clemens and Inequalityopoly to our audience. Now we are going to move into the segment that Perry spoke with me and engaged in the game of Inequalityopoly with a whole bunch of volunteers to demonstrate to you how interesting and engaging it can be when we use the method of gamification to talk about serious issues such as diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in US society. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. Welcome Perry Clemens, who's the founder of Inequalityopoly, an adapted version of Monopoly that looks at the field of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging and turns it into something that families and schools and workplace environments can play at their own time and learn about all of these issues in the United States. All right, so Perry, tell us a little bit about yourself and your game.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I created Inequalityopoly because I went to a lot of diversity trainings, and I realized that the trainings were very important, but not always made in the most engaging way. And as an educator for over 15 years, I know how important it is to gamify topics to make it easier to understand and relate to. So I embarked to make Inequalityopoly into an experience so that people can see how it is to be a woman, a person of color in America, trying to accumulate wealth with all the obstacles of structural racism and sexism.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about your research process, because a lot of times people in the world of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are going out into the field and doing the work, but however, they're not backed by a lot of research, which I think is really strong in your game and your approach to doing work on this field. So tell us a little bit about that and the background of the process.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so I think it's really important to include actual data in this game because there's so much amazing research done by these amazing researchers around the world, around the country, about racism and sexism on these topics. But to be honest, these papers are rarely read, are rarely in the news, rarely kind of absorbed by people. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of take these data points and put them into a game. So the game is based on probabilities, so that you have to roll a certain number to attain for something happening to you. Like, for example, you have to roll a certain number to get your mortgage approved. And that number is based on national recent studies. So everything in the game is based on some sort of study to really ground it and make it so that this is an actual experience. This is not just someone, showing an inequality. This is actual inequality that exists and it is recorded.
Sounds good. So tell us a little bit about the positive reception, some experiences of where you have shown it, who has played it, and the audience that this is intended for.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a game that I'm very proud of. People not only play as a diversity training tool at their offices, but people also take home to play at their family reunions, to play with their families. And I really think that's amazing because these messages need to go not only in the corporate rooms or in the classrooms, they need to be in dinner tables as well.
Sounds wonderful. So can't help but ask, considering how polarized our US politics are on issues of inclusion, diversity, equity, and belonging. So I wanted to know what has been some pushback and some experiences on people who have not seen the value in this work or been threatened by it, whichever.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of pushback, especially in the beginning of creating the game. But there was a quote that really guided me. It says, "Art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable." And I saw that the people who were criticizing me about this game were quite comfortable and not willing to kind of take a look at the inequities in our society. And those who were receiving the game were those who were the victims of this inequity. So I felt really reassured that people who were going through the struggle felt seen in this game. And those who weren't seeing this game didn't feel that they were seeing this game, needed to play the game so they could understand how other people's lives are like.
Great. Well, my hope is that maybe 10 years down the line, when this becomes a thing in many more households around the country and around the world, that you would have a slightly more positive answer when it comes to people's reception of it across the board, and that allyship between communities is built on the idea of understanding someone else's experience. So
Mhm.
hoping that people who are comfortable and who have faced less discrimination, for the lack of a better word, would actually have the ability to receive it and work with it to bring about social change, even if they haven't been the ones who have been at the receiving end of it. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the message is for everyone, and the more people who are who care about it, that aren't experiencing it, the more it will change.
Right. So tell me, this would be the last question before we actually delve into the game, because I really want the rest of the folks to be really getting in and doing the work and letting the audience know how cool it is and how well you have adapted it using research and a lot of imagination. So I wanted to ask you this, that what in your worldview, since you're the creator of the game, would populations that have not been historically marginalized get out of playing this game? Because this game is clearly putting forth a narrative that may be unfamiliar to a lot of people. What do you think it brings to that crowd of people?
Well, it brings to them a very individual understanding of racism and sexism, because a lot of people think racism and sexism are these structures that I'm not part of. It's just this structure that exists, and I'm here, I'm just doing what I'm doing, and what I'm doing doesn't affect social racism at all. But this game shows that your individual choices are affecting it all the time. Um, it just, in so many instances, like whether you're getting your mortgage approved, whether if you are a man and you have to roll to see if you get sexually assaulted, and you're more likely to not get sexually assaulted as a man, just enjoying that not being sexually assaulted, and then being like, oh, I'm not worrying about it, and because it didn't happen to me. That kind of experiences are something that people can take away from this game.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Perry, to give us a sort of a high level look into the game and sort of the thinking behind it. So I want to get into the game itself. So if you could please take the time to explain your game after I ask our dear guests to introduce themselves to us. So
Sure.
please let us know who you are, your preferred gendered pronouns, and your affiliations.
Hi, my name is Björn Nordtveit. I'm Fadia's husband. I'm also chair at the Department of Education Policy, Research and Administration at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I'm originally from Norway, and I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm excited to be here.
How's it going? Aiden Fitzpatrick, co-producer at Talking Out of Line. I'm a communications sports journalism major at Springfield College. Very excited to be playing Inequalityopoly today.
Hello, my name is Alberto Martinez. My pronouns are he, him. I am a communications major at Springfield College, and I'm also a research producer and scriptwriter for Talking Out of Line.
Hello, my name is Arshia Malik. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a co-founder of an HR tech company called Ilaria, where we measure inclusion in the workplace. I've been a fan of Inequalityopoly for a long time, and I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you so much, everyone. And Perry, please take on the floor and guide us through the game.
So we're gonna start the game now. And before we start the game, you're all going to be randomly born as your identities. So once I click play, you're all going to be born as your identities. Okay. So you can see identity, you see identity card. And then after that, you're going to start your inheritance rounds, where we're going to go through 3 rounds of inheritance, where each player is going to see if they inherit property. So during this time, when we are born, to say, I was born as this, say what you were born as. And then when we get to inheritance rounds, please let us know if you inherited property or not. Okay, so we're gonna start now. Okay, I've been born as a Hispanic woman.
I've been born as a white woman.
All right.
I've been born as Malik, a black man.
I'm born as Kai, an Asian man.
And I've been born as an Asian woman.
All right, so now inheritance rounds. The 3 inheritance rounds representing the centuries of disenfranchisement of people of color and women of owning and sustaining properties. So this first round, I did not inherit property. Did anyone else inherit property?
Yes, I did.
I did.
As a Bajoran, as a Hispanic man, woman, I did not inherit property.
Yeah, I'm at the second round. Nope. First round, I inherited a property.
And what's your identity again?
Black man.
Black man, okay, so no inheritance. I have no inheritance either. Aiden?
Not the second round, but first round, yes.
Okay.
And the third round.
For me, as a white woman, I've got 3 out of 3.
Wow.
3 out of 3 what? Tell us a little bit, Alberto.
I got 3 inheritance. I looked at it pretty good. And you can see them across the board.
All right, so I got no inheritances at all. As a Hispanic woman, I got no inheritances. This is because in the research, Hispanic people are most likely to get denied for their mortgages, which obviously makes for that property not being inherited by the descendants.
Yeah, I got, oh, something happened. I lost money.
All right, so now I landed on a great life event space. This is the Great Recession card. So everyone has experiencing the Great Recession, but depending on your perceived identity is different for different people. So if you saw that Black people lost $400, Hispanic people lost $300, and Asian white people lost about $100, and everyone lost their job, even though we're not employed yet anyway. Aiden, it's your turn. You pick the dice in the middle of the board. I can't believe I don't own any properties at all. All right, so Alberto, you landed on Tangerines Place. So do you want to buy this property?
Yeah.
All right, so you're gonna now roll to see get your mortgage approved. So, and what's your identity again, Aiden?
Asian man. My mortgage was approved.
Okay.
So what is the what's the probability on mortgage approvals for Asian males?
Yeah, for Asian man, the mortgage approval, you look here, you can see the identity card.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Identity card here shows, we can look on item 12, which shows a probability of getting mortgage approved. So you have to roll less than 8 to get your mortgage approved.
So each player card actually tells you probabilities and unlikeliness of mortgage approvabilities.
That's the big, actually I think it's your turn. That's a big thing that makes this game different than Monopoly is this game has identity cards, like the cards are dealt in life,
right?
Which dictate so much in your game. They dictate your salary, dictate chances of getting your mortgage approved. And the problem is in real life is that people don't know these numbers. A lot of people don't know that actually because of your identity, you're less likely for something to happen to you. So this game kind of illuminates that. So Arshia, you landed on some property and you paid some rent.
You landed on my inheritance. That's cool. I like that.
So you're receiving money on your first turn. You're receiving money from inheritance, not from anything you've done, in this life, right? It's the inheritance money from inheritances, which shows how wealth is built, right?
Yep. I like this.
For real estate.
Okay, I rolled 5. Where did I go?
So you land on the police interaction space.
Oh,
so
good.
you get to roll the dice to see if you go to prison industrial complex.
Oh no.
And what's your identity again?
Black male.
Okay. So
So
good
let
luck.
me check what's going on with police. I'm worried
Roll the
now.
dice. Oh, you got away. Yes. Love to see
What?
when people don't go to jail. So you
What
beat the
was
case.
what was the number that Bjorn had to roll in order to get
Sure.
away?
So I'm click on here on mine, and he had to roll less than 6, which we know on 2 dice, 7 is the most likely thing to roll. So that's really hard to roll. So you roll less than 6, which is good. And then if you become an ex-convict, then you have to roll less than 4 to avoid prison industrial complex. Because as
Okay.
we know, if you are ex-convict, getting out of jail, the recidivism rate is so high that within 3 years, not most of it, but 30% of the ex-convicts go back. And this is showing because when you are leaving as convict, it's so much harder to get a job, harder to get your mortgage approved, to get a rental house to live. All these things make it harder and harder for you to make a life for yourself.
This research, it seems so extensive. How were you able to gather all this? It doesn't seem like an easy task for
Yeah,
the
it
game.
wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It has a
No.
lot of research, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of
Yeah.
information, a lot of things, a lot of playing with it.
Because I mean, I feel like every aspect of the game requires completely different knowledge on the inequality.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's because it's so pervasive. Like, I mean, when I started this game, I thought it'd be, not so extensive, but I learned every part of our life has so much inequity to it. Even utilities. At first, I had utility space, which was a regular utility space. If you land on it, gotta pay for utilities. I did some research. Surprise, surprise. Black people and people of color pay a lot more for utilities for a lot lesser services.
Oh wow.
Flint, Michigan is a perfect example of that. And I didn't even think that inequity exists, but it does.
I just got away from a jail situation as well, and I'm wondering what my number was that I had to roll.
Oh, sure. So you click on the eye on your avatar,
Yeah,
in the top right, and then you can see
less than 10 or 12. Oh, that's the wrong one.
oh, sorry.
Arshia,
Yeah.
what's your avatar?
I'm an Asian woman, so I'm going to
An
guess I
Asian-
had to roll a much higher number.
Okay, so someone got denied for their mortgage. So now this goes up for auction. So everyone's bidding on the property to see to purchase it. And this goes to show that if you can't buy a property at the best price, like getting a mortgage approved, buying it at an auction or competing with other buyers makes it really difficult. So it's another way that it was made difficult to build wealth is just trying to acquire property.
So
Right.
for me, as a
So
white
The
Perry-
bidding war here.
So Perry, tell me a little bit about the Green Gardens Organic.
Well, I mean, so that's the thing in the board. There's the board is made in a rainbow pattern from
Yeah.
red to to pink, and going from more expensive to least expensive. So the properties get little by little more gentrified. So you see here, there's an organic store there, and next to it, there's a coffee shop, and all that kind of shows how the area is changing, right? And also you see on the property card, there are, you can see it very well, it's kind of squunched, but there's identities about the neighborhood as well. So not only do you care about the rent, how much it costs to buy this property, but also what's the neighborhood like? What's the employment rate in the neighborhood? What's the school spending in the neighborhood? Where are the environmental hazards in the neighborhood? These things are important because they affect us so much. Environmental racism is very prevalent. So on the property cards, I also put in the state of the neighborhood, right? Is this the neighborhood you want to raise your kids in? Because these kind of things are affected. And think about someone who has to live in a neighborhood where the schools aren't so good, but that's all they can afford.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wanted you to shed some light on the organic and privilege and environment and social justice intersections, because that's part of me and my work.
Yeah, and the food
My
deserts, right?
mortgage
There's so
was
many food
denied.
deserts where there is no organic food, right? So there's a plethora surplus of food in some areas, but in other areas, it's a food desert.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're back. And so again, we'll see here in the property cards, this one is alliterative, it's lemon lofts. So this is the most valuable property in that color group. Okay.
No one's backing down
if
on
you-
this auction.
Yeah, and the costs are going way higher
Listen,
than
if
the
you
purchase cost because
So-
my mortgage was denied.
exactly, so now you gotta pay through the nose.
Oh,
Now in the
God.
game, you can go bankrupt. Like in America, you could go bankrupt. Like in the capitalist society, you can go with almost unlimited debt.
Well, I
Same
got
thing.
my organic salad garden. What?
You got your coffee shop.
That's good. I'm happy about that.
But Kevin, if
I
you
like
spend all your
organic.
money, you won't be able to buy any property. You only be able to pay for rent. As a person who's bankrupt, all you can do is pay rent, and that's all. You can't build any wealth.
All right, my turn. Rolling the dice.
All right, that was quite a bidding war there.
I was very high.
The bidding wars get really fun. And so in this,
Aiden, what is your identity?
I'm an Asian male, so
Okay.
ooh,
and
payday. So this is
Payday.
interesting. I'm glad you landed on that because we have Asian male in the game, technically gets paid the highest of any person in the game, more than white man. But this is actually an anomaly in the studies because Asian, as we should all know, Asian, this is such a wide definition of what does Asian mean, right? What does
Right.
Asian American mean? And so the studies that I saw have Asian Americans, Asian men have making the most money, but they also on average have bigger households. So if you are making more money, but your household is bigger because more intergenerational health, more living, then you're not really seeing all that money.
oh wow.
So really, Asian Americans are probably making the same, maybe less than white men on average, taking into consideration their family structures.
That's so interesting. I hadn't thought of that. In my work, we're always talking about the difference between East Asian and Southeast Asian or South Asian experiences. And I hadn't thought about that. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
It's
so interesting.
fascinating.
Another thing I learned, was it was by skin color as well. The how much Asian people were making was by their skin color. The browner Asians were making less, and the whiter Asians were making more, which is absurd. Which happens in the black community too, which is that colorism as well.
The descendants of
That's
colonialism.
crazy.
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
Whose turn is it?
Actually, yes, your
It
turn.
might be mine. Sorry, I'm talking. All right. So I am an Asian woman, which is what I also am in real life. Which I think the first time I played this game, I also got that.
You meant
Yeah,
to be.
it's funny. I got that too when I played it with Perry, and it was a really silly moment where I'm like, "Oh my God, how did the game know?" I was
A really good AI.
It was random. The game didn't know I was an Asian woman.
So
One
I
day technology will be that advanced.
went to buy the
Oh.
property and I got my mortgage.
Congratulations. And you get your mortgage.
Congratulations.
Thank
It's a
you.
fancy area too. Blue circle, fancy.
Was the were any of these areas based off a certain city, rural place, urban place, or was it all just made up?
No, all just made up in a rainbow pattern, like a rainbow. Now let me
Gotcha.
do a rainbow pattern, of course in solidarity, but also it just kind of gives a structure. I thought about renaming them like, Harriet Tubman space, stuff like
Okay,
that. But I'm
yeah.
like, let me focus it on these topics. Maybe in another edition I'll have that. I want to have it so that you're focusing on inequality. You're not focusing on, oh, it's property. So that's why I just red, yellow, violet.
Right.
And so for me, I just try to buy my second property. My first one, the mortgage got denied. What are the probabilities for a white woman to get approved?
Okay.
All right, so
Why did I
one
lose
here.
money? 180. I lost 180. Oh,
I think-
it's Alberto's.
It's my property. That's my inheritance.
Oh,
Ooh,
all
your
right.
inheritance. Does that sound good? My inheritance.
Okay.
Understand.
The
All
white
right.
woman had to roll less than
I
10
hope
to
I'm
get your
getting a
mortgage
nice
approved.
room.
I get
The
your mortgage-
concept
okay, it's my
of
turn here.
the concept of the odds and the dice relating the odds in real life is actually, in my opinion, really brilliant, because it just makes that so much more tangible to understand the odds of being able to have some of these things.
Thank you so much. That's not my wife's contribution. That's my wife's idea. And I was like, oh, this is so brilliant.
Yeah, we
'cause
all
it really
get that.
shows, it really shows the probability, you know. And then everything, if you are unlucky enough to become an ex-convict, everything becomes too less probable. To, you know, if it's less than 6, you can roll less than 4. So yeah, it's good. And I think it's a good way of showing, like, that's how the world is. Like, you have these probabilities, and you also have your own will that affects it too. You know, you can, you know, someone can, out of desolate poverty, you know, become a millionaire, become successful. Yes, it's possible, but the odds of it are so low. That's what this meant to show.
Yeah, and it kind of breaks apart the myth of meritocracy, right? You can't always just work towards something and assume you'll get it. It's the odds are against you in so many ways.
Yeah, and the compounding, because then and that's the thing about this game, is that it's not only one thing against you, because life event happens. Now you lost your job, and now a recession happens, or a pandemic happens. You can't control these things. So when these things happen to you, they make whatever's already happened to you already even more difficult.
So that was really great that we got a snapshot into the game. So Perry, tell us a little bit. I think we will now move on to talking to you a little bit more about the game. And I would really love to know from the rest of the folks who are playing the game, like, what were their thoughts and reactions to doing this and doing it so that our audience understands the experience. So Perry, first tell us, like, where would the players be going? How long is an average game usually between this many people?
Well, a Monopoly, an Monopoly can go on almost forever. This game doesn't have an end right now built in. It just keeps on playing for whatever time frame people have for the session. But I'll say an hour is a good time to just play the game and talk about the effects of it. And then the next time you play it, it's easier. You can just jump in and play for half an hour and play as a different identity.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So tell us a little bit, in the same order that you guys introduce yourselves. What are some thoughts and reactions about playing this game?
My identity was black male. That was quite interesting. I got some inheritance, so I started well. After that, I had some issues with police, but I got away from it, so I did pretty well. My salary went up a couple of times, so that was good. And I managed to get 3 properties, but all on auction, because the bank was not very happy with me. The bank quite disliked me. So all the stuff that I got was through, you know, hard work and bidding. Bidding was with the others.
So Perry, tell us a little bit about what Bjorn said. So here, Bjorn's avatar clearly had some inheritance, got away from the police, and generally worked hard, got raised in his work. Why would a person who's Black like that be, what would be the logical reason, other than the illogical reason of racism, like, what could you do on paper to hold a Black man back who's clearly demonstrating all the right moves?
Yeah, well, it's a great question about the mortgage denial. And it really goes back to credit. And when I was first creating the game, I wanted to put credit scores in the game. I was like, let me put credit scores in the game and let me make it so that everyone have credit scores, because credit scores affect everyone. And I learned I didn't need credit scores. Your race is a proxy for it, right? So I can just use your race and that's your credit score. So, and let's go back to credit score. Credit scores are very opaque. We don't know what makes our credit score go up and down. A lot of people don't know. And if you are paying rent, then it doesn't go to your credit score at all, unless you don't pay rent and your landlord reports you negatively. But if you're paying mortgage, it's always reported to the credit agencies. So there's so many different ways in which Black people and people of color aren't building credit and don't have access to the same banking that Black people have. And this is why these people are getting denied for their mortgages, because the most important thing for mortgage for banks is credit. I mean, do you have the credit? Do you guys think you're going to pay me back? So if they don't have that credit worthiness, they're done. Even if they have the money and if they have all this other things, the credit worthiness really affects them.
Great.
So that's what it does.
Thank you so much, Perry, for that explanation. Aiden.
Inequality, definitely fun game, but eye-opening to say the least. I mean, as a white male, a lot of stuff that I'm oblivious to, that I wouldn't know. And through Perry's extensive research, it's there's some interesting facts, some horrifying stuff, but yeah, definitely eye-opening and new, I would say too.
Alberto.
So for me, I got a white woman. Being a Hispanic male myself, it's very different. But at the same time, it puts it into perspective, and it kind of shows in a way how someone can work really hard, someone can do their best in order to go higher in society. And there's going to be different factors that are going to affect them and that are going to complicate their lives. So it's kind of just a luck game, like in this game, whether life is going to be more complicated for you, or it's going to be kind of like a cruising altitude.
And Arshia.
Yeah, I played this game a few times at this point, and I'm always kind of struck every single time by the importance of making something as nebulous and large and complex as systemic equity tangible, or inequity rather tangible. I think people know that that's a thing, but they don't really understand how it shows up, because you're just living your own identity and your own experience every day. And so I think what I love about inequalityopoly is you can really kind of see that tangibly in different parts of a life experience, all the way from being born and getting an inheritance to the types of jobs you get and the pay you get and your odds for getting a promotion. I know that that didn't happen today, but I know that's part of it as well. And so I think, and as someone who is a person of color and historically marginalized group, part of that, I think it's also important for folks to see. For me, for example, I don't know the nuances of a Black man's life. As much as I can read and learn about it, there's still parts of it that I'll never, there's an upper limit to that. So this kind of a game, this kind of an experience really brings that to the fore, and creates some more knowledge and understanding around that. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that now that I've seen, and I've played the game once, but I've seen others play it, and is that every single time, based on sort of the life circumstance and where you land, each time it's a very interesting way of learning information about new things. So it's not the same information that you're learning every single time based on where you fall and your identity. So I feel like it's a very nuanced and like all-rounded sort of experience of learning something, which sort of brings me to me complimenting you, Perry, that as Aiden has said before, the game and setting it up, you really needed to do a lot of research on so many topics of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and people's lived experiences. So I think that's really what stands out to me, that you really had to do you didn't have to just research environment and racism. You had to do real estate and racism. Like there's just so many aspects to this that and do you want to comment on that as like a parting note for our guests?
Yeah, that's a great final note. I mean, I'm talking my experience with the game. I was a Hispanic woman, and I was disheartened because I began the game with no inheritances at all. I was the only one in the game who had no inheritances, right? And it hurt. That wasn't fun. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much, everyone, for playing this game. I mean, I had a lot of fun making this game. It was a hobby that just, turned into something bigger. And I'm just glad to just play it every time. I'm just happy to play it. And I'm just happy to have everyone with me and have to lessen the mission of the game, realize to educate people about racism and sexism and how it affects us accumulating wealth.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us for another episode of Talking Out of Line, Gamification, and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. Take care, be well, and see you in another episode. Bye.